Hi.
Hello.
Get myself. Heather here for a second. Hi, Mary. Hi, Beth.
Hello. I'm Mary.
Good.
Hello.
Hi, Beth.
All right. How are you guys all doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Very bright.
Time to drink my tea until we get going here.
Right. Same idea.
What kind of tea are you drinking?
Tension tamer.
I have lemon ginger.
Yum.
One time I had tension tamer in a mug on my counter. I had put the tea bag in and I was letting it sit for a while and I left. And I came back and the cat was on top of the counter on his back, rubbing against the mug, and the mug's going closer and closer to the edge of the counter. I run over, I save it, and I'm like, what? And I grab the tension tamer box. An entire side is filled with like 100 ingredients, and I'm reading through them all right in the middle, catnip.
There is catnip in it.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that'll tame your tension.
Anyway, that was my fun story.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, it's 7:01, and do we have everybody? Scott's here, and Beth's here. I think we're all here, so we can call the meeting to order now. We don't have a clerk, so we are on our own for taking minutes. I'm willing to take the minutes from the recording just to save you guys the grief, but the one thing that would be helpful is if one of you could make a list of all the attendees and email it to me.
I can do that.
And I see somebody is accessing from their phone. Would you be willing to unmute and just give us your name? It's 1-240-731-7379. Okay. Here's Janice. All right. Okay. So the first thing we have that we're going to be considering tonight, which we initially had just planned on talking about notices of intent, but since our next meeting agenda is very busy and Ellen, who is here tonight, Ellen Waldinger, had some time pressures to get her property squared away. We're going to try to do this quickly, hopefully. Hi, Ellen.
Hi. Hello to all of you.
Yes. I've circulated to the commission the copy of the as-built that was provided to us by Ellen from her engineer. So I think the first thing is for us to consider whether we feel like that's sufficient and whether we feel like we can issue the certificate of completion and then of compliance. And then another question will be whether we want to do an enforcement order. And I have given Ellen a heads up that that was something we were considering.
Right.
Have you guys had a chance to look over what I've sent you?
Yes.
And were there any questions? Any comments?
No, I mean, it was helpful that I was there for both of these site visits, and the photos that you posted were extremely helpful in reminding what was going on. Because I was not one of the people who was taking photos.
Yeah, it helps, though sometimes they all kind of blur and I just feel like I'm looking at leaves and dirt from all
So
different.
that's why it was helpful that I was actually there, or I wouldn't have understood these photos. And it was like, oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
So, I mean, I personally feel like, we've got a path forward that kind of meets everybody's needs, which is that we would issue the certificate of compliance tonight, which I'm sure you'll be very happy about after all this.
Yes.
Be careful what you ask for, right? It
Yes.
can get a little complicated sometimes unintentionally, but and then we would talk about what the mitigation plan would be.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
what I'd like to do, do I need to screen share the certificate of compliance? Have people looked at it? Do you want me to bring it up?
I
I
printed
looked
it
at it.
out.
Yeah,
What?
I'm fine. I saw it. I don't
I'm
know.
fine. I saw it.
And do I have everyone's permission to sign for you? Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Scott, yes.
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 Hi, Scott. He unmuted. Maybe that was a yes. We're gonna take that as, we might, I don't know if that's yes. I assume it is. You'll let us know, Scott, if it's not a yes at some point. Okay. So I move that we issue the certificate of compliance for 27 January Hills Road. Do we have a second?
Mary.
A
Whoa.
little noisy. Okay. Nice. All right. Okay, who's the second?
I'll second.
Beth, okay. David,
Aye.
Defont, I, Khan,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay.
And it's okay for us to sign for you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm having problems with the mute here, but I can,
Okay,
but yes, you can.
okay. Wilson
Aye.
and Harrington, sorry, out of order.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so what I want to do, so what we will do, Ellen, is we'll issue that. We have to submit it by snail mail to you, certified mail. I can send you a digital copy, but it's the certified letter that counts. And then you'll need to take it to the Registrar of Deeds, and there is a form that you have to sign and send back to us to indicate that you've
okay.
you've given it to the Registrar of Deeds.
Do you know how long that takes to get for me to receive the certified mail and to return it? It's just a matter of days, I assume.
It's a matter of days. I mean, if you're under time pressure and you want to arrange somehow for us to, bring it and drop it, I could leave it tomorrow at Town Hall and
That would be fantastic.
you could come over and pick it up. Would you prefer to do that?
That would be fantastic. I'd greatly.
Okay, I will leave it in the Concom mailbox and you'll just have to ask somebody to retrieve it for you.
Thank
But just check the hours. I think the town clerk is there from 10 to 1 and then 3 to 5.
Okay, thank you. And I hope it's okay for me to say that I appreciate this enormously, really. I'm very appreciative of doing it in this order, and I look forward to now the second part of our conversation
Great.
about repairing the driveway.
So I'm going to pull up the draft order of conditions first. Can everybody see it? Because I can't see it. Let me find it. I just opened it. Can you all see it?
No.
No.
Shared?
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go.
Okay. So
Well, that's the
here-
enforcement order, not the order of conditions.
I'm sorry, not the
Oh, right.
enforcement order.
Oh, okay.
Spoke, right. Okay, so have you guys had a chance to look at this draft enforcement order?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm trying to see, is this the correct draft? Gravel has been pushed to the north side of the driveway. Areas have been not stable. Okay, so this is really just the extent of the activity, but the major issue here is the erosion into the buffer zone and the gravel that's eroding from these areas. And on this page, page 2, there's unapproved soil disturbance in a buffer zone resulting in unstabilized slopes is the issue. It's not related to the order of conditions because we're discharging those conditions. And then I put down a restoration plan shall be filed with us by February 1st. Do you guys, first, let me hear from you guys, and I guess also from Ellen. I'm happy to have your input of whether you feel like you can come up with a plan by February 1st. Is that enough time? It doesn't mean you have to complete the work. It's just to have a proposal.
Do you want me to respond first or?
Well, let's hear from you. Yeah, let's hear from you first.
My son, whom I think you met, Matteo, mentioned, for example, that someone had thought, well, since this house was zoned for a pond down there in the wetlands, maybe it would be a good idea to put a pond in so that the water would have a natural place to resolve itself, as it were. And you know, I'm very open to that. I mean, quite frankly, what I want to do is make this so that the wetlands are preserved and so that it works, so that I don't have to repair it again. You know, so and so when Matteo mentioned this about a pond, you know, I think that it's, if one is going to do something, I think it's wise to do it well.
Yeah.
You know, I will get working on this immediately.
That would be a much more complex undertaking than I think we had in mind.
That's what, so that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say, that if it can, if what we're talking about is what I think you mentioned with making sure there's the riprap, is that what it's called? The proper stone and the swale and the various things on the driveway, then it strikes me that surely an engineer would be able to come up with a proper plan that gives us December, January, February 1. I don't know people's schedules. They may be all incredibly busy during the month of January. So I can't tell you off the top of my head that they can do it, but it sounds reasonable.
You could come back to us if it turned out that date didn't work for you.
Well,
Let us know. We're meeting in January. And if you came back in January and said, listen, I need another month or whatever, you know, we would certainly, I think I think we can be flexible about that, because none of the work is going to get done in the winter. So this is really just giving you time for planning. So why don't we say February 1st on this form, and then I'm going to stop the screen share and I'm going to pull up the draft addendum to that, which hold on, I've got it open. And let me screen share that.
That sounds great, by the way, Miriam. You know, hopefully I can get it so that you have a perfect plan and it's done and finished by February 1st. But I will certainly be able to put something in front of you by February 1st that's very, very thorough. And so that's excellent.
So this was a draft. Have you guys had a chance, has the commission had a chance to look at these requirements?
I don't think I saw that before.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I tried to just make it sort of focusing on how do we remedy the problem as opposed to fixing all things, because I don't think that is necessarily our intention. However, if you want to propose more than that, I think if you were to build a pond, you might need to do a notice of intent for us, because that's going to mean altering the stream that goes along your property.
I see. Yeah, well, so then maybe, I mean, it's just something Matteo had mentioned to me that I hadn't thought about. And so I don't, why don't we just assume that what I'm going to do is repair the driveway?
Yeah, it
And-
seems like it makes sense.
and
So,
likelihood
what-
that a pond, if it happens, would be down the road and not part.
so what I have here is that asking you to put down straw, which is something that we use to just keep things from eroding further before the final repairs are completed. And that, you know, you can have a landscaper do it. You could do it yourself. You can go to a, you know, a garden supply place and buy a bale of hay, of straw, and just distribute it around the areas where the ground is disturbed. Go ahead, Don. Any question?
I was hoping that Robbie Adair could return to the scene of the crime there and do the straw, put that out himself. He knows where the area we're talking about is, where the culvert, the old culvert, got crushed.
Yeah,
And he cut away the bank on that right side. If you're heading downhill toward the house, he cut away the bank on that right side to give his gravel a place to go. So he knows where to put the straw.
yeah.
Okay. I like Robert Dare. He's worked, you know.
So a date, we should have a day. I put in yellow because I wanted to hear from the commission. What date do you think, like, you know, a couple of weeks? Is that reasonable?
You know, Rob tends to be very busy, and so, you know, this is the holidays. Listen. I want to defer to you because you're the experts. I'm not. I'm going to be, you know, as I said, I'm going to get working on this immediately. I'm very appreciative of the order in which you're doing this, and I want it to be fixed over the long term. You know, so I see at the bottom, point 4, that it will be. The approved repairs will be completed no later than April 1st, 21. Do you think that's feasible? I mean, when does the,
That I just, Ellen, everything that's highlighted in yellow is because it's not written in stone yet. Let's take things one step at a time and go with item number 1. Because that's like the short-term solution.
I know Rob is very, very busy.
Okay,
And December the 2nd. Is it Don who suggested that Rob should go back? I mean, I will call him right away.
I think for something this small that Robbie could probably get over there and take care of it. But I don't know what his schedule is either. That you're right. This is the time of year when he's doing all his septic work and all that sort of thing.
Janice, you had a comment?
Yes, I was just wondering, and maybe this is just a placeholder, but trying to do any seeding in December isn't likely to be successful. So in
Right.
that first thing, talking about seeding and
Right.
permanently vegetated, that's not going to happen until next spring.
Right. Okay, so why don't we shall apply yellow straw, and we'll move this receding kind of weird how this is happening. Hold on, sorry guys.
Maybe number 2 should be number 1 and vice versa or something. So you just have the seeding one second and the immediate
yeah, no, that's why I'm
work. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so with yellow straw, and we're gonna say, let's say January 1st,
22.
22. And then the second condition will be the area of soil disturbance will be seeded and reseeded with a conservation mix grass seed, repeated seeding may be necessary to establish vegetation. That sound all right?
Yep.
Yeah, what do you want to mix that with? Yeah, 3 talked about until it's permanently vegetated, and that might be good, not just vegetation, but permanent vegetation for number 2.
To establish
Yeah,
preliminary erosion controls will be completed by, well, we've kind of already said this. With, shall apply. This looks like a typo. All right. Okay, so we actually don't need 3 because we've kind of already done it, right? I don't think an erosion sock is necessary. Seems like it just needs to be straw. Would everybody agree?
There wasn't much velocity in that water. It was percolating.
Okay. I don't know if we'll want to do a site visit in the winter because we might not be able to see anything, Ellen, but you can notify us when you get the temporary controls.
Okay,
Put the straw down.
Okay.
Then what we want is for you to present a mitigation repair plan by February 1st.
okay.
And not 2021, 2022. And then would you want to make it May 1st, just to give you some time, a couple months after spring hits?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's just, I would prefer to, not to have to say, I prefer to have a date I know I can hit now than to have to come back to you and say we need an extra month. And it seems that this, when will this become feasible? Seeding and reseeding, what do we say, March, April, something like this? And so, it seems to me it's safer if we say May 1st, that,
Okay, all right. Okay, so is everybody comfortable with this, or any other comments or suggestions?
Just with number 4, I'm wondering if we want to say that the plan should include sort of a revised drainage plan for the driveway. So including, let's see, to address the unstabilized and eroded areas, but then also just, a new plan as to where the drainage on the driveway is going to be going.
Okay. I think, and you'll present this plan to us, Ellen, and we'll have a conversation. We'll put it on our agenda and have a discussion with you. And, if we have more questions or comments at that point, we'll have that discussion with you, because we'll have to approve whatever you're proposing. But I think, we need to see what you want to do first.
So, and maybe I can just, maybe I can email with you, Miriam, just to get a sense of the actual schedule for this, by when you need that plan in order to present it to all the members of the commission in time and to review it and to be.
Yeah, so if you can present it by February 1st.
Just present it by February 1st, okay.
Yeah, the plan, or send it to us, and then we'll review it at our hopefully, we meet the second Thursday in February, and hopefully we would be able to review it then.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's, do we have, somebody want to make a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to approve the enforcement order for, or issue the enforcement order for 27 January Hills Road.
Okay.
I second.
Robin seconds. Okay, David,
Aye.
Stefan, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, well, thank you, Ellen, for your patience with us. We appreciate it.
Well, actually, thank you to all of you, for
hope the
time
end-
I'm very, I don't know how to put it, but I am eager to make the driveway function properly. So I
Yeah,
appreciate.
you are, I can imagine. So maybe it'll all end up being good in the long run.
Okay,
So that's great.
good evening. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so we are done with your piece and we can move on to the next part of our agenda. So I asked for this meeting so we could talk generally about how we want to approach notices of intent for commercial properties, large, and obviously what namely the solar projects, should they actually submit notices of intent, and which, I assume they will, but we don't have a date of when that might happen. And the backdrop of this was that there's a solar project being permitted currently in Amherst. And I attended the public hearings for the Conservation Commission, the Amherst Conservation Commission. And, I was really, it gave me pause to think about how prepared we were and what our approach might be for reviewing any applications that get submitted. And so I wanted to just have a preliminary conversation about it. I shared with you guys some documents I got from Erin Jakes, who is the wetlands specialist that works for the Concom in Amherst. She actually is a town resident. She lives in Shutesbury. So perhaps she'll come to one of our meetings in the future. But she gave me I had a conversation with her on the phone, and she shared a little bit about kind of how they've been approaching things. And what happened in Amherst was that notice of intent was withdrawn because the Conservation Commission found it to be incomplete. And so the applicants, TRC, are revising the notice of intent and are going to resubmit it. And I circulated, I think, to you guys also a document where, I had some thoughts about maybe we should have some thinking about what kind of third-party reviews we might want if we do get a notice of intent. What Amherst is doing, that they're having a wetlands third-party reviewer. I think actually they may be using Emily Stockman. And then they're also getting a civil engineer to evaluate the stormwater system performance. And they're also getting a hydrogeologist and a geologist. So they're getting at least 4 third-party reviewers to evaluate different components of the proposals. They do a lot of large commercial projects in Amherst, obviously, because of UMass and because there's all sorts of commercial development in Amherst. So they have a kind of a procedure they follow. Whereas in our case, we don't have a long track record in reviewing these kind of projects. So wanted to see what people thought.
Yeah, I'm all for third-party review. I mean, I used to do Erin's job. I was the previous Erin.
You were the Erin.
I was the Erin, and we certainly did third-party reviews for stormwater review with engineers and wetland delineation reviews. When I was there, I don't think we ever had a hydrogeologist or geologist review, but certainly the stormwater is a, I feel like if we get one of these solar applications, which we probably will, getting an engineer, and I can think of a couple offhand that we used in Amherst to
Great.
the stormwater report. That's a good idea.
She gave me the name also of an engineer that they're considering using.
Was it the Zengineer?
Yeah, Bucky Sparkle.
Bucky Sparkle. Yeah, he's great. He's
He's
good.
good.
Yeah, he's very
Good.
good.
Sounds like he does this stuff for towns. And
Yeah.
I personally like the idea of finding a civil engineer who's not associated with one of the large environmental firms, because it used to get a little complicated. They also work for solar developers. And I think, just somebody who's kind of more used to working with municipal governments.
I know Bucky through working on private commercial projects, so I would not consider him someone who is more on the Conservation Commission side. He's okay. There aren't too many to choose from, but don't consider him someone who's not, into commercial and private projects. That's all.
He does both. Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely will work for a developer, and he'll also work for a conservation commission.
Well, we'll probably want to get more than one proposal or quote from engineers. So Beth, if you have other ideas, let me know, and I'll reach out to people and maybe get their resumes. And Don, did you have a comment?
I don't know too many engineers in the area, but actually this is a question for Janice. Who do you guys, I understand that you've got the town council to use to advise you, but it seems like the Concom needs their own legal representation or advisor. Alexandra Dawson was the person to go to back in the day, but she's gone. Janice, do you have any idea what other Concoms do, like Amherst? What are they doing for legal counsel?
I don't know about Emerson. Beth would probably know better on that. In Hadley, we had to go through town council. Once Alexandra wasn't around, we didn't have someone else. It had to be through town council, for better or worse.
Yeah, Amherst also goes through town council, but the company that is the Amherst Town Council has a variety of lawyers, and they have some that focus on, open space and wetlands regulations. And so that would be the particular lawyer that I got in touch with for.
Is another town allowed to hire those same people?
Well, I think Shutesbury must have, do we have, I don't even know, do we have a town council that's sort of assigned to us or that we use?
We have a town council.
Yeah,
Is it just one person or is
Yes.
it a company? Oh, it's one person. Okay.
and you don't see any conflict of interest in that, huh?
Well, there could be, but it just may be difficult to work around it. Unless you had a specific focus that the town council did not have experience in, perhaps, or something like that. It'll be tricky.
Just my question.
Yeah.
So I was impressed, honestly, with the thoroughness that the Amherst Concom did in reviewing those projects, that project, in the two public hearings they had before they withdrew the permit. And it just made me think that we're going to be challenged to do that, especially if we have multiple projects coming up. If they come up in close succession, hopefully they won't. They'll be done sequentially, but I don't know. We don't know how they're going to approach it. That was my thought had been that we should think a little bit about getting our ducks in a row for what kind of third-party reviewers we want, and so that we can do that in a speedy way. And then I'll get to you in a second, Janet. What Aaron said was that they actually waited until the applications were complete before getting the third-party reviewers involved, because otherwise, what are they reviewing? They might have to do a second review once the applications are complete, and then you're paying for 2 reviews instead of 1. Janice, did you have a comment?
Yes, I would agree with that, first of all, and I'm sure Beth did the same thing as I did, that we'd go through it, the staff would go through it and find as many questions as we needed or had, and present that to the applicant, and then say, so we're going to be needing a third-party review, and these are some of the questions, but there'll be more, or something like that. The other thing is just looking at that whole list, that checklist of notice of intent. I don't know if it's something that you should make more for any.
I didn't, Janice, I
Yeah.
didn't share that with everybody.
Oh, okay. But I'm just thinking, do you want to, I don't know if it's legal or right to focus on just solar projects for special requirements, or whether it should be considered like commercial projects in town.
Yeah. I was putting together a draft of a checklist, and I didn't circulate with you guys because I kind of had a second thought about it and felt like maybe that's sort of premature, and we don't really need that. What we need to do is review the project application as it comes in, and then decide what we want after that. if we want additional things. It's hard to anticipate in advance what we might want without seeing the proposal. One thing
I think I do agree with Janice that if we're developing this, it should be more widespread, not specific to one type of project.
yes. Yes, and that's why the other reason why I didn't think, wasn't going to recommend doing a checklist. Also, it's kind of the concern I have about a checklist is that it could give an applicant maybe the wrong sense that that's all we want. Because it's hard to know in advance what we might want until we kind of see what the proposal looks like. And I kind of don't want to get into a dynamic where, you know, there's a pushback saying, well, we're doing everything that's on your checklist. So I feel like, you know, they have to do their due diligence. They know what to do for a notice of intent. And then we can look at them and decide what additional third-party reviews we want, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that a checklist could include, like just stamped engineered plans. You know, I think for most NOIs, you would want that anyway. It seems sort of like a basic requirement.
Yeah, I did a search of other conservation commissions. A lot of conservation commissions have a checklist that they have on their website, and MACC has like a sample that they have on their digital resource library. And you know, it's basic, and it would be for any project, not commercial, not singling out commercial properties. And maybe that would be useful for us. We don't get a lot of notices of intent, but particularly for homeowners, that might be useful for them, because unless they've got an environmental engineer working for them, they might not realize all of what they need to put into a notice of intent.
Yeah, it helps to make the, you know, the meetings shorter too, you know, and somebody shows up and they haven't really provided anything that we need, we have to send them away, and then, you know, they have to come back again. Whereas if there is a checklist that says, you know, we definitely, at least for an RDA even, we need a plan that shows where the wetland is and, you know,
Scale,
where
something
area
like that.
is and where erosion,
Scale, how many copies,
how many
um,
copies.
things like that. I can take that draft. I'm going to clean it up and I can recirculate it to the commission so we could look at it at our next meeting. How's that sound?
Good. I think
Sounds
so.
good.
And I think that another thing too is actual soils information, because too many people, mostly for notices, most of the time requests, you don't need it because requests should be buffer zone. It won't be as critical, but for notices of intent, that they actually do soil sampling testing on the site and not just use the NRCS booklet, which was one of the things I guess that happened in Amherst. Like, give me
Yeah,
a break.
that's kind of an important issue. And Amherst, for everybody who didn't know, Amherst, they did not do any soils testing. They were just relying on the NRCS mapping, and Amherst Concom pushed back and said that they had to do in situ soils testing with a representative from the commission present to spot check it. And they also needed to do test borings to assess depth to groundwater. And both of those things are really, I think, important for stormwater design.
Yeah, I think, again, for the larger scale projects that have happened in Amherst, test pits were almost always done.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that solar project came forward without
Yeah.
that. And I would assume that the projects that come before us, we would want the test pits to show the soils. Sometimes with the test pitting itself, you can actually get to groundwater. You don't need to do borings in addition. But
Beth, one question I had with Amherst was that one of their comments had been that they wanted the stormwater features to meet the DEP stormwater handbook for criteria. Is that mandatory or is that voluntary with these kind of projects?
that is, let's see, well, it's definitely, it's mandatory, I think with every notice of intent.
Yeah, it's required.
That it
Yeah.
has to meet, for a notice of intent, it has to meet the stormwater standards.
Yeah,
If it qualifies, if it has 4 or more units, if it's a housing development, but it's a requirement that they have an engineer fill out that form that says, yes, we meet standard 1, we meet standard 2, et cetera, all the way down.
Right, and it's in the Wetlands Protection Act and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if they don't have, if they're outside the buffer zones for some of these projects, they won't come before us. And they don't have to meet those standards if they're outside the buffer zone. Is that the way it works?
right.
They still,
If there's no discharge, and at least there's no points discharge within your jurisdiction.
right,
Right.
okay, that's what I thought. So yes, so that was one of their comments, was that they felt like the stormwater features were not sufficient. And are they required to meet or at least analyze how they considered low impact design features, LID?
That's part of, so once you qualify to have to submit a stormwater report, which I can look up the exact qualifications for that, but I think Janice is right on. Once you do qualify and you have that checklist, there's things like proposing LID to us, you have to use a certain amount of LID. You also have to show pre and post treatment, and you have to meet certain water quality treatments post construction. 80% removal of sediments has to be shown. That's all part of the checklist that they go through. And
That was one of the issues in Amherst, was that their stormwater feature was not meeting the, well, I guess they didn't provide the TSS worksheets, and the features did not remove 80%.
The features, the stormwater features have to be built to certain specifications and used only in certain situations. And I think they were sort of mixing and matching, and you really, in the end, can make them follow the stormwater manual, which says specifically what you can use a dry detention basin for and what you can use a trench for or not, and things like that. So this is where you get an engineer to do a really good job reviewing their stormwater. Once the commission or the staff or whatever has looked it over to see, okay, are they on the right track, or are they like going to need a lot of work? Then you have an idea how much peer review is going to be necessary. But the stormwater, there's a lot of specific engineering and calculations involved, and it's really best to get a good engineer to check it all.
yeah.
What do you think about the idea of a hydrogeologist to look at I guess to comment on any possible impacts on subsurface hydrology is, I guess, the thinking there.
I think after what we saw at the Wheelock site, I think knowing a lot about the soils and how they're going to drain is pretty important. In Shutesbury, it seems like the soils are a little complicated. So we might want to do that. I'm wondering how much we can combine these things, how we can get, one person to possibly do geology, hydrology. I don't know about the wildlife biology part of that. It seems like that would be a separate person, although possibly Emily Stockman could do that.
That's what I was going to suggest, is that I think Emily can do all of those things, including a biological impact statement, a wildlife statement. It just seems to me that that's just something that you pay for. End up paying more for it. That's all.
The applicant pays, so in the end, it's not going to cost the town. And in this case, I think the applicant has a big pocket. But still, just to simplify things for us, if we want to try to, combine maybe the hydrogeology, geologist combination and get Emily to do the wildlife.
Well, the other possibility is, if you find a civil engineer who has some geotechnical background, they might be able to speak to the soil mechanics and hydrogeology issues for third-party review also. I mean, those aren't, sometimes not all civil engineers do geotechnical stuff, so.
Yeah, again, I guess maybe that leans towards a bigger company, not just the engineer, because I'm pretty sure he's more of just an engineer.
Stormwater guy.
Yeah, but if you get a larger company that can do all those aspects with different staff. then,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's what Swicka does that, and Ty and Bond do that as well. So,
And GZA.
yeah, the really bigger outfits, obviously, they've got 4 or 5. One person does one section of stuff and another person handles the other.
We used another environmental consulting company from the Worcester area, and I can't remember at the moment which one it was we decided on, but their top people, as well as the top people from several other organizations, are all on the board of MACC. And I think they all do a good job, and we got a really good job from them. I think it was VHB for the review of Route 9 and the DOT project. And that was a big messy one, and
Was
they
that
were good.
Janice, with that V as in Victor, H?
Yes, yep.
V?
Vanessa Hagen Bristle or something or other it was, but it's just called VHB. But I can give you a list of a couple that we've used. And sometimes it's good to get a little out of area, depending on your project and how much, people are already involved that are local. Or for companies that have more personnel, and SWICA is usually on the side of the applicant, so you have to use somebody else that has a big enough team.
Okay. Well, this will be something I don't think that anything's happening in a big hurry, so I don't think there's a rush, but it's something we can be thinking about and continue, I think, unless there's more we want to discuss about this. I don't know.
No.
More thoughts
So
about-
I think that, if you use the solar, for example, and they have multiple projects, you would contract the same person for all the projects or upfront?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Well, yeah, we couldn't probably contract for all of them upfront because we'll have to have a separate agreement for each project because they're going to apply for them separately. But ideally, we would find somebody who has the capacity and their schedule so that they could do all of them. I think
Yeah, I think that's what I was looking more, the capacity to do it.
right, would have, that would
Okay.
be a question. And for consistency's sake, I think it would be easier to have a uniform approach.
Mhm.
Well, Beth and I can write down the organizations that we know and check in with Aaron and see who Amherst is using recently, that, to add to that is just an approximate, list to start with
That
for
sounds great.
Concom.
That sounds really great. So happy to have you guys. So happy. Because it's a little terrifying. So, I won't lie. So I'm glad we have a deep bench. Our little town. Okay, I feel like that's probably enough discussion for tonight on that topic. Unless any other comments? And I don't know if there's anybody from the public that wants to make a comment. There's a lot of people listening in. Does anybody want to say anything? Raise your hand. Nope. Okay. All right, Elizabeth. Yes, go ahead, Elizabeth. You had your hand raised. No? Okay. All right.
Yes, I am unmuted. Thank you for being patient while I unmuted.
That's okay.
So just a little bit more clarification about employing these experts. And it was mentioned that the applicant has to pay for them.
Yes.
And then the next step would be third-party review. Does Concom do third-party review?
The experts are the third parties. When we say third party, we mean somebody who is not the applicant or the Conservation Commission. So it's a independent expert that we are hiring as a consultant for us, but it's paid for by the applicant.
I see.
They have to agree with who we hire, but they have to pay for it.
Okay. And if they don't agree, okay, I guess we'll get there when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to have a good reason to not agree. If we find somebody who has the proper credentials, I don't think that they can object. I don't think they would have grounds for it. Carlos Fontes, did you want to comment?
Hi, it's just a question. So I heard that the possibility is that Emily Stockman would be the third-party reviewer to look at everything. And I am wondering if it is certain now, if there is a consensus now in the committee with the committee members that the committee is going to hire an hydrologist or a hydrogeologist to really look at the network of water resources, or whether do you think that that is something that Emily is fully skilled, is fully capable of doing, or do you actually need to have somebody with that specific skill?
Well, I think I think that's a question we can ask Emily. I certainly can, I can reach out to her. And if we hire a civil engineer, it may be that the civil engineer would also have enough expertise so that we wouldn't need a hydrogeologist. I guess some of this is going to depend on the specifics of who we hire for the civil part of it. Do you guys have any comments? Anybody else in the commission want to?
And the idea here, right, is to gather the companies and do a little bit of research on who has some of these skill sets, so we would know a better answer to that.
Right. We might find somebody who ticks off all the boxes, who's a civil engineer. But we might not. And I can't answer whether Emily feels like she has enough expertise to address that issue. She may feel like she does. I trust that she would not, that she would be careful and not overextend herself beyond her expertise, but she's excellent. And I feel like she has a job for us in helping us review projects.
Can I?
Miriam, does 43G, 63G, whatever, I forget what that,
53G.
53G, does that allow for hiring more than one person?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, they may push back on it. It's and there may have to be a discussion with the applicant about that. You know, again, there's a lot of, these are huge projects. There's a lot of money involved, and it seems like it's important that we do them right, that we review them properly, and that we have the right expertise to help us.
And certainly in Amherst, large projects had both a third-party wetland reviewer and a stormwater engineer reviewer, two separate companies going at the same time.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
So,
Yeah, and for an NOI, is it commonplace to get a wildlife biologist to do an evaluation of impact on habitat?
again, I didn't do that before in Amherst, but I can definitely see it being needed.
You don't have
NRCS did that.
What?
NRCS to do that. We would bring in a staff wildlife biologist. They would rely on someone like me to write the report, and then the wildlife biologist would add a section.
But I don't think it's required to have a wildlife biologist unless you meet those requirements of what is it, like over 50 linear feet of bank, or certain, there's some other qualifications on
Yeah,
it.
like cold water fisheries triggers it, right? Usually that's handled by natural heritage.
Yeah.
But then there's other types of wildlife biologists who specify, and they work on amphibians and things like that.
So it's going to depend on which projects we're looking at,
And where, yeah.
and where, because I would imagine, I'm trying to think which ones might have a cold water fishery impact. Maybe Leverett West is close to Roaring Brook,
Pratt Corner, does that include
Yeah.
Montague Pratt Corner.
North of Dean Brook, one of those?
Yeah, it might. I think there are streams in there. I don't know if they're cold water fisheries at the point where they are on the properties, but I guess that's something we'll explore. Okay, I think we can move on unless there's any more comments. We have another agenda item at 8 o'clock. I don't know if there's anybody else on the call who wants to say anything. Okay. All right, well, we are going to be talking about the CPA proposal, and Bridget Lively was going to come to talk to us from Kestrel, and she's not here yet. Penny's here, which is great. Hi, Penny.
Hi, everyone.
So just to get, before we get started, just to kind of give you guys the broad overview, what has been proposed by Kestrel is that they have a large pot of money left over of federal forest legacy funding, which comes with certain conditions, that is available for acquisition of conservation land. One of the requirements of that fund is that Kestrel cannot own the land. It has to be owned. They can't own it. So the proposal is that the land would be purchased with Shutesbury owning it. And the Kestrel Land Trust would hold the CR, the conservation restriction on it. So the accounting, just to give you guys, oh, here's Bridget. She's just joining us. Just get her in here. Hi. Second. Hi, Bridget. Welcome.
Hi, Miriam. Thank you.
I called you Lively, Bridget Lively. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
That sounds good though, Lively.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I was just giving people an overview of kind of where we started with the conservation proposal, that there's this pot of money that's about $206,000 and change that's available. In addition, Kestrel has a individual donor who has also put in another 20,000 that's available for this acquisition. So that brings Kestrel's contribution to 226 in change. The proposal with the Forest Legacy Program is that there has to be a 25% match. So Penny and Bridget and I worked on a proposal for the CPC to ask town meeting to approve that 25% match out of CPA funds. And then there's some additional costs related to the acquisition, the due diligence, including surveys and appraisals and closing costs and management costs. And those would need to come from another source and potentially come from the Conservation Commission's Conservation Land Trust Fund. So potentially, I kind of broke it down in the document I sent to everybody. Should I pull that up and then maybe we can have Bridget talk a little bit and answer some questions?
That would be great.
Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm trying to find it. Where that
So Miriam, this is Penny. While you're calling that up, I have a small suggestion to change the CPC proposal so that it's co-sponsored with the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Commission. Just thinking that might strengthen the proposal. And that's in part because it fits in so well with what's going on with the open space and recreation plan update that's going on right now. So as you talk with the commission about this, I just, I'd request that you consider that as well.
I think that's a good idea.
So can everybody see this?
Yes.
So I have a question. Maybe Bridget, you can answer this. If the town purchases it in fee, would it be a joint ownership with the Conservation Commission? Or how would that, because sometimes a conservation land has been ceded to jointly co-owned by the Conservation Commission and the town of Shutesbury.
Yes, I think, if that's something that you desire, that's a possibility. I believe that's what's happening with the project I mentioned in Belchertown. That's similar funding scenario. So I think that's absolutely on the table. It's not an issue with the Forest Legacy funding at all.
Okay. Because I think that I'm imagining that the commission would like to have that in the deed just for clarity's sake for who's managing the property.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I would just say, I think it's great. Penny's suggestion to have open space co-sponsor, but just clarify, the role of the Conservation Commission in owning the land ultimately.
Co-owning, because we can't
Yes.
own land by ourselves, but we co-own it. So any other questions people want to ask Bridget and Penny and I? Don, you have a question?
So the Pearson lot apparently is about to be logged. I've seen a forest cutting plan that looked to me like it was going to be removing most of the mature timber on the property. Typically in the industry, we call that high grade logging, but in this case, I would call it salvage logging. She's trying to cut the timber before she sells the property. Doesn't that change the value of the land?
So
The cut has been stopped, right, Bridget?
Yes, so we were in touch with the realtor, just to give you a timeline of events. We reached out to the realtor last week with an offer. And after speaking, with the landowner, Wendy, they accepted that offer verbally. And then over the weekend, the realtor put the logging on pause while we put the written agreement offer document together. A term of that agreement was that the logging would not go forward in the cutting plan. And so currently we've signed the agreement and sent over deposit, and they're just finalizing the situation with the logging because equipment did show up yesterday. And I think there was some confusion around that. And so they're just making sure that the forester is not proceeding, and we'll get an update on that hopefully tomorrow. But yes, we're not going forward with the logging with it under offer by Kestrel.
That's great news.
So I guess one question I have is, what are the risks involved if town meeting does not approve the purchase?
Kestrel still has this option of pre-acquiring the land. If town funds don't come through, where we would just hold it and look for funding elsewhere, or pursue another grant like the state grant, which won't fit for the timeline currently. But it would be something we would be able to move forward with if for some reason we needed to pre-acquire it. So I think, we have every hope of the CPA funding going through, but it's not going to completely derail things. We'll have the written purchase and sale agreement with Pearson, hopefully in January, finalize that. And then we sorted out with them. Wendy is willing to wait until May for closing in order to allow us to go through this town meeting and hopefully secure these funds. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, then Kestrel would step in with funding while we looked at other options.
Okay.
I would interject here that if what is in the grant, the CPC grant, is lowered to $48,000 versus $68,000, if I have my numbers right, I think it's a much easier sell. And I feel confident that it would pass at town meeting.
So if we agreed to take money out of our trust fund instead. I know we got a couple questions. Scott, you've had your hand raised for a while. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks. Miriam. I had maybe a question for you and a question for Bridget. Maybe I'll start with Bridget's question, which is on Forest Legacy. I'm familiar with Forest Legacy grants, but maybe if you could remind me, do they come with any, are there any positive obligations on behalf of the landowner to manage the site in the future for forest health? Or I'm trying to better, or is it just strictly a non-development? It extinguishes the development rights, but I'm trying to understand if there's anything that would fall to the town then to manage the forest, any type of condition or plan.
So the Forest Legacy Funds is meant to go towards, forest management, but also things like drinking water protection. And so there's, certain goals that they're hoping to meet with Forest Legacy Funds, but there's flexibility in those goals. So I think, I think Miriam may have mentioned Kestrel will be holding conservation restriction. And so we can lay out in the conservation restriction kind of the management expectations for the land. It doesn't necessarily need to be active forests. Kestrel, is interested in forever forest land where it's just passive, interest in letting the forest be. But if the town is interested in more active forest management, that's something we have certainly history with. So there's flexibility there. It's just the Forest Legacy goal is meant to protect forest land in some form.
And there's no restrictions on passive recreation access?
No.
So it's open for hiking, hunting, fishing?
Yes, again, it's up to, the town and Kestrel as we write the CR to determine, what's allowable.
And maybe a question for you, Miriam. I'm just wondering when these, as a new commissioner, when these properties come up before the commission, is our work guided by an overarching plan where we evaluate these tracts to see how well they accomplish conservation goals within the town? And how does this, if so, how does this tract, have we done that evaluation to see how it lines up?
Well, I don't think that we get these kind of opportunities and Janice, I know you've got your hand raised, so let me just answer that and I'll get to you. I know you're waiting. I don't think we get opportunities like this very quickly, Penny, very often. So Penny might be able to speak to what in the past has been done. And we certainly can talk about the discussion we've had about why this particular property is appealing for conservation protection. But I can say for this particular property, the things that we've talked about is that this, there's a map that we've circulated. I think I put it in the email that shows kind of the patchwork of other land that's being preserved as open space. And this provides some connectivity and continuity with those tracks between the Quabbin and Shutesbury. So there's some wildlife habitat value in this, besides the fact that it also has the headwaters, part of the headwaters for Amethyst Brook in it. So those to me seemed appealing.
And Miriam, this is Penny again. I would interject that in the 24 years I served on the commission did not have an opportunity like this come before it. Janice can probably talk to the fact that the last piece of property that the town actively acquired was the South Brook Conservation Area that Janice was involved with. And so the Conservation Commission has not ever created any criteria for acquiring land, which would be a great thing. I will add to that as part of the open space and recreation plan update that I'm currently working on, one of the primary first tier goals is to develop such criteria. And of course, the Conservation Commission would be involved in whatever those goals might be.
That's really helpful. I think just trying to understand, for for us to be the underlying fee owner, because it sounds like regardless, with the Forest Legacy Grant, the land would be protected. So it's a question of who owns the underlying fee ownership, I think is what we're discussing, and to understand how it fits into the overall conservation objectives of the town. And that's helpful to get, some of that perspective. So thanks, Penny. Thanks, Miriam.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is an opportunity to leverage a small amount of money for a purchase that would be hard to come by anywhere else, to get 34 acres for the amount that the town would have to pay for is would not be possible without Kestrel's contribution here. Dennis, you had been waiting.
Sure, that's okay. So I agree with Penny, and usually the Concoms are too busy to spend much time on, ideas for, primary goals for open space protection, just with, as you know, from all the wetland stuff you have to do. So it's helpful to have the open space plan with Concom input provide that, and that's often accepted. The information that's in the open space plan is often used in other grant proposals and should reflect the Concom's interest, which I'm sure it will with Penny involved there. And otherwise, I was just wondering, in terms of, okay, maybe lowering the CPC match to 48,000 or something. Has anything opened up with the Amherst Water Department, possibly kicking in a little to help make this project happen, since it should be of interest to them from their watershed perspective? And Bridget, have you been in touch with them or someone?
Our executive director, Kristen, is in frequent contact with Dave Zomek at the town of Amherst, but I can't say that there's been any movement forward or definitive answers about funding, though it's still, of course, a possibility. I just can't give anything definitive right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't. The last I heard was from Dave, basically saying that it sounded like Shutesbury was taking the lead in buying the land and being the owner of the land. So, and I said, oh, I missed the last Concom meeting. I didn't even know. Great, that sounds great.
I'd like to add to that for those of you who are who filled out the survey for the open space plan, the primary thing that people in town want is places to hike where they feel comfortable, that they have long-term access, that there are trails, and there is potentially a parking spot. And so, and Bridget, you can correct me if this doesn't fit in with the goals of this property, but if it does, having a place that the town has some level of control over that can provide those things, I think is a real asset to the town of Shutesbury.
Yes, I would agree.
One thing that has come out of this that I want to say is that there was some discussion, and it's not part of this proposal. It's not on the table for this proposal, but there is another large tract of land in Shutesbury that's not for sale, but might conceivably in the future be available. That is off of Montague Road and is a 200-acre property. That would be very interesting to be able to come up with a funding package to acquire. So I realize that that's not possible now, but in terms of priorities in the future, I think it would be wonderful if we could find a way to make that happen, if maybe through a land grant application, something.
Yeah, I would say it's certainly, going to stay on Castro's list as a priority for the town. And I think we'll continue hopefully quiet conversations with those owners. And I would love to see, the Conscom also kind of keep it in their back pocket for opportunities.
Miriam, do you mind if you state where the property is? Because I think many of the people here are familiar with the big parcel.
Yeah, so this is at the bound border with Leverett where the wetland is, bog that used to be a pond, and there's a dismantled dam before you get to Dudleyville Road on Montague Road. And this land is owned by the Brown family.
And it also is right across the street from another small parcel that is conservation area.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's
Yep.
right. There is a piece there.
Yep. So it would be a nice fit.
But it's a huge, it's not a property that is easily developed for residential, but who knows what other things could be developed for. But it would be wonderful to see it remain as an open space.
Absolutely.
So commission, how do we want to propose, I'm gonna pull up the CPA, I'm gonna screen share the CPA application. Has anybody looked at it?
The thing that you sent?
Yeah, the draft.
Yes.
Yep.
Let me see if I can find it. Because I don't have it open. That's why it's not showing up. Hold on one sec. Having some trouble. Zoom. Where is the draft? CPC. Pearson. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, let me try to screen share this and we can talk some more. Why is it not going up? Oh, because I'm not scrolling the right place. Okay, here we go. So thank you, Penny, for putting together this. Can people see this?
Yes.
Yep.
And this shows I printed out the right thing. Yay.
In this case, we would change the applicant to, I think, probably the Concom and the Open Space Committee. If people agree.
And maybe recreation too, or not?
We haven't involved them at this point.
Okay.
If they want to, if we can do that in such short notice.
And the deadline is a few days from now, so
Okay.
we have to move with some speed.
So how do we want to do this in terms of the applicant name, applicant organization?
I
But what if we said Penny Jakes on behalf of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission and you could be our, am I spelling your name right?
Gosh, I can't read it. It's too little. It's too little for my 70-year-old eyes.
Okay, so I'm going to say on behalf of the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Commission.
Right, or it could be, I would be happy if it said Miriam DeFont, Chair of the Concom, and Penny Jakes. I don't know if that we have a chair for the Open Space Committee, but you could put me down as the chair if that
It's not
useful.
it's not responding, but okay, we can do that. I'll just make a note, add Miriam and Penny. Okay, we can do that jointly.
Yeah, and I think those details we can just adjust as long as the commission is fine with it being a joint application.
Yes.
So then the next question is the amount to request. And so what you're suggesting is possibly lowering it to 48,750 with an extra. So then our contribution would be what is 36 plus
36, I think.
56
How much?
would end up being 56.
56,
Yes.
is that right?
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
I thought it was
Not right.
36.
It would be 36. From the trust fund, it would be 36.
And does everyone know how much is in the trust fund currently? No,
Something like 80,000.
something like 80,000, and that sounds like a lot, but it's taken us between 15 and 20 years to accrue that. So I would not suggest to the commission that you expend or commit more than that amount.
I agree.
Why do we feel like we shouldn't ask for 68 from CPA? I guess, do we know how much CPA money is available this year? And
I think they have a good amount of money. I don't think they've ever funded anything on that scale before. And that's my reason.
okay.
They've done a
mean,
lot of small
never-
projects. On the other hand, they've got like $300,000 and they keep saying that they want people to apply because they need projects to use the money.
Right.
And I mean, this is just the determination of eligibility form, so this isn't, set in stone with the request, correct?
Correct. Right. That's right. Bridget is right. This is the first step. This is just like a 2-page document. This gets submitted to the CPC and they decide whether or not it's an eligible project. And if it is, then a full proposal has to be completed by sometime in January. I forget what the date is, maybe mid-January.
So we have a little bit of time if we want to tweak the numbers.
Mhm.
Okay, I would sort of, I guess I'm thinking maybe we should keep it as is and then we can, it's easier to lower it than it is to raise it. And Penny, do we need approval from the select board to use the
No. No, the commission has complete control over that as I understand. And Janice, do you recall? But my understanding is
It's a yes and no answer. As Alexandra told me when we were working on this sort of thing in Hadley, the commission may have the full right to choose to use the fund however they want. But the fact is that you still need the permission of the select board to sign the check, to issue the check.
interesting.
Yes, that was her explanation. So you have to get them on board, somehow. You can't be, I don't think you can purchase a property. Supposedly you can if you're not borrowing or whatever, any money, which you're not on this one. But yeah, that comes down to the final line is in order to get the money, you still have to go through the select board process. Or at
Okay.
least that's what she said.
So in terms of timing, do we need to do that sooner by the time we submit the application, or do we have some time in the next 2 or 3 months before a town meeting?
I have talked with both the select board and Becky Torres about this just informally. So they're both groups, well, both Becky and the select board are aware of this.
Okay. But we need to have a conversation with them about it. So in terms of timing, do you have a sense whether we should be doing this before we submit the full length application in January?
It's always a good idea to be, open and forthright with things. So I would say yes.
All right, so that'll be fun.
Just as an FYI, February 10th is the submission
thanks,
date for
Bridget.
the full application.
Yeah, I think it enhances your application to be able to say, the select board, approve behind this land purchase or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, then I will contact the select board and try to find a time when they can put this on their agenda and try to get this posted jointly with us. So we can go and talk to them as a commission, talk about it. So do folks want to look at the rest of the text here?
I read it when I printed it out.
Okay. Any comments or revisions? I mean, I put in this little section here that's in red. I don't know if that makes sense to have it in there.
I think so. It is an unusual opportunity to be able to have a chunk of money coming through and that this project meets those requirements, in more than one way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And isn't there, Bridget, is there a limit to when that money has to be spent by too? Are we sort of under pressure to spend it?
Yeah, the forest legacy funding needs to be spent by this coming July. So,
Oh,
That's another thing you might want to add in there is that if we
Okay.
don't spend it, if we don't use it now, we lose it.
okay.
Miriam, is there a name for this area that you guys are thinking about?
Well, Kestrel came up with a lovely name. What was it?
that
West,
sounds like it was a Christian suggestion, which I don't know if I heard. No, we're just calling it by the landowner name currently.
but I think there was a Quabbin Woodlands
Oh.
project or something.
Well, we call for the purposes of forest legacy funding, this falls within our West Quabbin Woodlands region.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, we don't have a name. We might, maybe we could call this the Amethyst Brook Conservation Area.
Oh, Amherst has one of those already.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
okay.
I wouldn't worry about it now.
Don't worry about it.
Unless you have a donor who's willing to supply enough money to be worthy of being named.
Should we say in here that the plan is that it would be that land would be held jointly by the Conservation Commission and the residents of Shutesbury?
No,
I would think so.
I think it's better to have one manager, don't you think?
Well, Penny, the Concom can't own the land outright by itself. It has to own it jointly. We can't be the only party on the deed. And
But having one manager is certainly easier.
Yeah,
yes,
there's owner versus manager.
yes. So the manager would be the Conservation Commission.
Right. I
Um,
think that's how some of our deeds have been done in the past, even with Kestrel, is that, the town has to be the owner. And then it's documented that the Conservation Commission will be the manager and have the authority to manage the property for open space and recreation and, wilderness or whatever.
Well, South Brook, it's both, that the deed has both the Conservation Commission and there are some other properties in Shutesbury where the Conservation Commission is a joint owner. So
Uh-huh. Okay.
for that.
Yeah, just actually looking at the document where it says in a couple places, the Shutesbury Conservation Commission utilizing CPA funds to support its purchase of the land. I feel like it's the Conservation Commission is supporting the town's purchase of the land.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to say that the Concom, that just seems a little, it's not quite right.
Is seeking to purchase, is seeking for the town to purchase. Is that any other places where it needs to be corrected?
Right under where the paragraph starts as open space acquisition and preservation of open space, I think it says it there.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Conservation of life.
Where is that?
Under that new section.
That's really
Open
review, but,
versus open space.
Instead of its purchase.
Right, I'd like to support the town's purchase.
Yep. Okay. All right, any other comments?
I would just say, from what I could see, that I like the map, but I think it would be helpful if you had some really nice, pretty pictures too of the forest or a trail or something. Maybe not for the first thing here, but for the final application and for dealing with the select board perhaps as well. Maybe Jeff has some.
Well, not the best time of year for pictures, but. you can
Well, you
We
see-
have some
see
photos
that.
from the site visit.
There's a beautiful old uh, dam structure on the property, which is
That's
very
cool.
cool. You know, it's a broken dam, but it's very cool. And it would be neat to have walking trails in that area. There's some great stone walls on the property.
Yeah.
So Bridget, I have a question for you. Would there be
Mhm.
any benefit to the strength, well, and maybe this is really for the CPC as well. Would there be any strength to this, the support of this project if abutters provided some funds for this? Even as a token sort of a symbolic gesture? Would that be good? or bad?
I don't know if we've ever done a CPC application with abutting contributions. So I don't know if that's a better question for CPC. I don't see it harming the application.
Mhm. I
Would
know
it-
we
would
did that
it-
recently when the town supported the purchase of a small parcel on the S curves in Shutesbury that was purchased by the, oh gosh, I always get it confused, Fish and Wildlife. And the abutter contributed $10,000 or $5,000 towards that. The Conservation Commission contributed some amount and the state paid for the rest of it.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't see any issue with it. I'm sure it would be helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Jeff, you're in a butter. How much do you want to contribute?
Yeah, I know, I feel like I just got volunteered for.
Voluntold.
You've been served.
What I might be able to toss in is the fact that my property that abuts this directly to the north, my orchard and field is not posted, and neither is any of my land. I don't advertise it because that would involve a little bit of liability issues, but anyone is free to hike on it and to access this property from my land, which is not a bad way to access it, pretty nice way to access it. And if that could be accomplished without liability to me, I'd be happy to at least offer that.
Jeff,
Yeah.
was that your land? I'm just remembering from when we visited, your land was that field that we walked across to get onto the property?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a nice big that's a nice field.
yeah, yeah. Walk through the orchard and go onto the property, and you know, I'd be happy to do that. I reserve the right to you know, to deal with bad behavior but anyway, you know, that's something we can discuss. But anyway, but my property is not posted. That piece is not posted. So but and anyway, there's a question before about whether I had any I have a map that I made up just using the Shutesbury GIS system. I made up a little map of this property. So not sure if I've circulated that. I think I gave it out at the field visit, but you know, it would be that type of map. Probably make a better map if somebody with mapping skills and GIS skills put their mind to it.
Bridget,
Jeff, do you have growing season photos
Growing season photos of what?
of the trailhead there?
I have photos of my piece. I don't have any photos of where it enters this property, you know, the back corner.
It can
No.
still be nice to have photos even this time of year because you can see further. You know, maybe you could get, I don't know what the property is like. You can see from a hill looking down on the mill site or something. You know, you can see the brook running through the property. better than you can when you have all leaves. So, I mean, you still can do something, it won't be as green, but it can still visually show the potential for the property for hiking and passive enjoyment or something.
Do we want to set up another site visit for more of the commissioners to go and check it out?
I wouldn't mind seeing it sometime. I just couldn't do it before.
Beth saw it. It was just Beth and me and Penny.
Yeah,
So Miriam, how strenuous is it? With my knee, if I have my pole, can I do it?
I'm a pretty disabled person. I did it. There's a little area where there was a steep hill to walk up. And obviously I would use walking poles this time of year because it's so slick
Yeah.
out there.
Then I would like to go and check it out. If somebody is willing, if I need help, to help drag me up a steep hill or give me an arm to hold on to.
I can come along and give you back ride if you need more.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
And I can tell you after going on to the multi-hour hike for the Baker Road Anran property, this is a piece of cake.
Oh my God, I can't believe I survived that.
This is fun
It's
in
much easier.
comparison.
This was easier than even the Wheeler tract. It was less, it wasn't as much walking. So because it's still private property, we have to get this arranged with the realtor. And Jeff was a wonderful trail guide. So perhaps we could prevail on Jeff to help us set that up on a weekend or something.
Yeah, I have blanket permission, I guess, to take people on
Great.
that I got from the realtor. So
Great.
I think that still holds.
Good. Okay, so Jeff, maybe think about some dates at work for you. Hopefully snow will stay away long enough for us to do that.
Yeah, I'm around a lot. You know, I live and work here, so it's easy for me to schedule.
I'm guessing we want to do it on a weekend because there's some working folks that might want to come. Don, would you like to come? Yep, okay. All right, so Jeff will give us some times and I'll circulate it to you guys. Bridget, I had a question. Where would you imagine the public access would be for parking?
That's a great question. I myself have not visited the property, so I would love to join you for that site visit. I think that would require some analysis. Probably our stewardship team would know better than I, since they're the ones who really implement our parking areas.
So
But you know, there's
most of the frontage on Pelham Hill Road is a very steep hill. It's
I don't
like
think that, I think the further towards Pelham you go, the less that's true.
flattens out.
I envision it being further to the Pelham line, right, Jeff? You're chewing.
My ice cream was melting.
Okay. So from,
Couldn't hold out any longer.
it is very steep on the end closer to Baker Road, but it becomes, the access is much less. So as you approach Pelham, I think there is likely a place along the road there. And as much as Jeff is welcoming people to access from his property, I think it would be valuable to have one or two official designated parking spots that are not on Jeff's property.
Sure, you have to have them.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah,
allowed to
as soon
post
as you
the
get
word
down-
on the
as soon-
vehicles?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we should probably look at when we're out there.
We might want to wait until next spring. I mean, you can look at that now, but I think that all those kinds of things are fairly premature.
Okay.
Can I ask just for management of the piece? It sounds like if we proceeded and we went forward and this tract were acquired by the town and managed by the Concom, you know, then I take it we would be, the next steps would be to actually write a management plan or identify how, you know, we would be using it, including, you know, what areas would be developed for parking, whether it be trails, the recreational uses that are open to those types of things. Is that how this would proceed then in terms of like a timeline?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be the Concom would be the body who would be writing the management plan for this tract.
We
Either
could
the
certainly
Concom-
support
either
them.
the Concom, or you could arrange for a consultant to do that. So Janice, for Southbrook, did you personally write that management plan?
I think so. It was a long time ago.
You've blocked that memory.
But I think that, in this case, having a CR on it, a lot of those questions and concerns and that will come up in order to get the CR written in terms of what kind of uses are allowed or not allowed. And then that can inform the management plan after
Okay.
after that.
And the CR is when would that be? That would be written before we would acquire it, I would take it.
Yeah, it would, mostly be in conjunction with closing on the property.
And do we have a draft of the CR? What? Or not?
There's a state template that is, Kestrel uses as its standard, and I'm happy to circulate that if that's of interest to folks.
I'd be really interested in
Okay,
seeing that in
great.
terms of, what's allowed and the uses. I'm just, looking at, the overall standard template for Forest Legacy, but it would be good to see how you've boiled that down.
Yeah, I can follow up with that.
So, any more questions, or do we feel like we have enough information maybe to take this to a vote?
What did you decide to do about the final lines for the funding?
I think we thought for now we'll leave it at 68, and then see where we want to, we can revisit that in January.
Okay.
Um,
Can I ask Miriam the timeline for this again? Because it would be, again, I do think it would be important to be looking at the conservation restrictions of the easement to know what we're acquiring, because that will spell out, what rights are being reserved and what would be, the rights transferring with the fee ownership. And so would there be time to circulate the CR, agree to that in the timeline that we need to decide in terms of acquiring it?
well, we have to submit the long application by February 1st. So that gives us a little less than 2 months. It sounds like there's a template that we can circulate, and
Yes, I don't think, the finalizing of the CR would be, at closing, so after town meeting in the spring, but we can get a sense of, what management guidelines within the CR the town would be interested in seeing. Because it is just a template, so it's very, workable.
that sounds good to me. And maybe we could put this on our agenda in January and take a good look at the template. So we don't have to approve it by February 1st, but, make sure that there's no, I guess, big concerns that are insurmountable.
I'm guessing that you'll have things come up at town meeting, if not before, whether it's snowmobiles, hunting, some of those sort of typical things, maybe bike paths, that will enter into what the final CR is. When we had one done for part of the Mount Holyoke Range with Kestrel, the snowmobiles had to be included, but the ATVs were still excluded. Some of those sort of standard things, and then hunting was allowed, as well as fishing and stuff like that. So some of that, are typical issues in towns around here that will probably come up in the course of discussing this project too.
Well, Scott, you had mentioned the idea of trying to develop some uniform conservation management policies that would apply to all of the conservation land.
Yes.
Which it makes a lot of sense to me.
Except that some lands may be more sensitive than others.
Yeah.
The one on the northeast side of the lake doesn't have any room for vehicles or for doing much really in terms of activities.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it would be, my interest was in just looking at them as a whole, understanding, I agree with you. I think some tracks, just by their size and topography and nature and sensitive habitats, lend themselves to some uses and not to others. But
Yeah.
I just thought it would be nice to look at all of our conservation lands and to think about the management of those lands, holistically as a group rather than kind of tract by
Mhm.
tract.
Mhm. And that might be helpful for the open space plan that Penny's working on as well.
Yeah,
My sense is that there's a number of small properties that are conservation land in Shutesbury. We're not doing much of anything in terms of active management.
Which is okay.
Yep.
Which is
Right.
okay. I mean, there's for a number of these small parcels that are only at most a handful of acres, there's not even parking available on the site. So
Yeah.
it's hard to develop much of a management plan when it's not really a functional space as far as inviting people onto it.
There's no trails.
No
Right,
trails, no parking, no map. No one even knows about some of these.
Property boundaries.
I was on the commission for 20 some odd years, and in working on the open space plan, I learned of at least 3 conservation areas in town that I had never known about before, all of
I-
which maybe 4 or 5 acres.
I think I know them.
What did you do, Janice?
Too many open space plans.
Talked a long time ago.
It would be great though to provide those, so we do have all of them. And I agree, some of them are going to be small isolated tracks that there's limits to what you can do with them, but just even having knowledge that they exist and that they're our responsibility, and making sure that we're checking them on periodically so they're not getting built upon or encroached upon or those types of things.
I think that's great, Scott, and I would love it if you would sort of take the lead on that. I've often felt like the best way for the commission to work is for different people who have different interests to sort of take the lead on that interest. And if that's an interest of yours, it would be wonderful for you to be the resource person for that. And I can give you the information about all those sites fresh from the open space plan.
That would be fantastic.
Great.
Good
be
job, Penny.
And maybe some other commissioners who would like to help out, but I would think that would be just a lot of fun, actually.
Right.
Yeah, that would be, I would really love it if you would do that.
Wow, it's thundering out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw lightning out Mary's window.
Yes, it's
so
like
funny.
I had
Whoa.
it too, and I was
Lot of
thunder-
thunder.
I think I might
away.
have to go to the basement. The thunder is like, okay.
Okay, so can we have a vote? I'd like to move that we approve this CPC eligibility application. This is the preliminary application with the edits that we discussed. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. David,
Aye.
Font, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Wow, this could be exciting.
It's very
Crossed. Thanks, Jeff, for being willing to take us out there again.
Very welcome.
And thanks, Bridget, for all your work on this.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited.
Thank
Me
you.
too.
So I'll CC you as well, Bridget, around dates for a site visit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. All right. So I don't know that we have any more that we need to discuss tonight, unless there's any unanticipated business. I imagine you guys will see that I attached a couple of emails that I have sent to the select board. Did folks get a chance to see those?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I just decided to do that on behalf of myself, not representing the commission. But for the highway department issue, yeah, I wanted to reach out sooner rather than later because we're wanting to see some repairs done, and it felt like It was time sensitive. I did get a response from Becky Torres that she wanted to set up a potential meeting, possibly with you, Penny, as well, to discuss it.
Mhm.
So I guess what I wanted to ask the commission is what might we be looking for Wendell Road erosion issues? What kind of solutions are we looking for in the short run here?
I'll hop off. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Bridget.
Thanks, Bridget.
One thing I feel like when they do this country drainage, if they could be a little more conscious of doing it not right into resource areas. You know, if they're along Wendell Road there, they're looking for places to install it.
That's where the water wants to go.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to, you know, water, it depends on the sloping and the topography and whatnot, but I mean, that is our whole defending the wetlands. One of our ideas always is to have drainage go into upland areas where it can infiltrate before it goes into resource areas. So if there's ways that they can, that's all, this is a suggestion to the highway department to try to have the outfalls be as far as they can from resource areas.
Yeah, I guess my thought just from living there, I am watching it. I think having the drainage way and the road be one thing, you know, that's part of the problem. It's impacts the road because the road is washing out, because the road ditch, for lack of a better term, you know, is eroding, and then it silts in over time as the road is washing out. And so I think to the degree that they can have some sort of, you know, permanent or vegetated, you know, conveyance for the water, so that when I agree with what Beth said, you know, ideally it would be good to go through the upland area, but I think it's just going through some sort of stable, you know, conveyance. So when it does hit the wetlands, it's not, you know, full of silt and rocks and, you know, gravel from the road. And that's what's happening now, both on the steep parts of Wendell Road and also on the, you know, the other parts of Wendell Road, you know, that continue on down towards the lake. I ran by it this morning, it was all full silt, you know, just looked like mud.
My thought had been twofold. One is that maybe we should be proposing that they really heavily riprap some of these stormwater swales, because right now they've been just lining it with kind of a lightweight gravel that is getting washed away. And if they had heavier angular, like 3-inch, 4-inch riprap, that stuff would stay put and it would slow the water down and prevent some of the sediments.
The other thing is, I was going to say, the road material itself is lightweight too. So I think it's the road is eroding down into the resource areas, and I think there are better substrates that they could look at using on the road that would stay put and not erode so much.
So for like a short
stone
term
dust.
solution, for a short term, like what we want them to do right now, because I think that some of that is going to involve more engineering, and is probably not going to happen in a short run. So really thinking about what's expedient now. Does that make sense to you, Don, doing riprap?
I mean, I spent a good part of this past year doing exactly that on the dirt roads in Wendell State Forest after the storms. One of the issues is that you need a storm event to sort of figure out where the problem areas are. The DPW can't make a career out of maintaining that section of Wendell Road, but like you say, they certainly shouldn't be dumping sediment directly into resource areas either. I don't think they have a good sense of where the resource areas are. And one thing I relied on all summer long was Open Space has some really great maps of resource areas in town. something like that should be on the wall of the DPW, and they should be cognizant every time they're working in a resource area, especially on dirt roads, where you would be pitching the road to, where you would be having your drainage spots at. That requires a cooperation between the Concom and the DPW that really doesn't exist right now. I think you're talking about a much larger approach to all the dirt roads in town, not just this one.
Right. But so now, just thinking narrowly about this particular issue, so riprap would be one,
It's the size of the riprap that matters.
right? 3 inch, 4 inch?
Yeah, so it's ERG 3 or 4. It should be much larger than the stuff that they're incorrectly using now. They're using bank run gravel, which is what the roads are made of. And it's just too full of sand and silt. Every time it rains out.
Bank
it
round
moves.
or bank run?
They're using bank run right now.
Okay. Yeah.
As long as they're not, I'm just afraid that you might be giving them, maybe not realizing it, but they will accept it as sort of a carte blanche to go in and start dumping rock along the edges of the road. And I'm not sure the exact spot you're looking at, but I was on Wendell Road today, and there's that beautiful spring stream that starts not too far uphill from where the utility work is going to get done. And I'd hate to see that just get covered in riprap. So
I agree.
I don't know how to be careful that they don't overdo it.
Is this the area where the spring is? This is not the area where the spring is.
It's a little above, I think, right?
There,
Yeah.
it's both, because we looked at the spring area too, Marion,
Okay.
but that's right where the landowner was complaining about the, remember the spring actually comes up in the road.
Mhm,
It's
yeah.
actually, it comes up in the side of the road. And I think, right now the stream or they cleaned it all out. So it's really just a ditch, and gets, they took a backhoe in there and cleaned out that part and a lot of the other parts of Wendell Road. So it is just dirt right now. That's really holding, and that's why it's not being held in place.
So, and the other thought I had, moving back down to where South Brook is that there probably needs to be some berms or riprap to slow the water down before it hits South Brook, because it's just taking taking the road into South Brook where it wants to drain.
Do they need to
Yeah.
put in some, is it detention or retention basins there to
They could do
slow
that.
the water to let it
Right.
infiltrate?
Detention basins like Pratt Corner Road, or
Mhm.
swales that are directed into detention basins.
So
I-
I want to interject for just a minute, and I know there's always this tension between the highway department and the Concom. And my allegiance always lies on the side of the Concom, but I know the highway department is doing the best they can. And I feel like there's this sort of adversarial tension between the two. And I'd love to find some way to cut through that and have a real conversation. I'm not sure with our current highway superintendent
Mm.
that that's going to happen. He tries hard, he keeps the road safe, and he's retiring in June. And so, yeah, many of you may know, well, many of you probably don't know, Don, you probably recall that for years we tried to create a generic notice of intent for road work for the town. And basically it felt like we hit a stone wall.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that there's resistance from the people that they have limited staff. DPW can only do what they can do with the equipment they have. But that said, sometimes a picture or a map is worth 1,000 words. And when they're in these areas.
So have you had a site visit at this location that is of concern with Tim hunting?
No, we haven't. and
Because
I
that's
actually
really, I
think that
mean, to
maybe
me,
that-
for you to tell him what to do is not a very constructive way or
no,
productive way to go about this.
I don't think
Um,
so.
And
Um,
I think meeting him there and talking with him might go a lot further than trying to tell him what you think he should do.
I think Miriam's gonna have to ask the select board before she can arrange that meeting.
Right.
Well, asked this, I sent this thing to the select board. And then I got a response from the town administrator saying I should have gone through her. And I was like, I don't know how to get this right. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
really. Well, that, that's a whole nother problem, but,
Mm.
Okay. So I like that idea. And I was actually
Yeah.
thinking about that, we really need to have a site visit. And I would prefer very strongly that it not just be me
I would agree.
sharing the love of our town.
Uh-huh.
So all of you who are here, I hope many will come. How about if we try to set up a meeting, a site visit it'll have to be during working hours. So I know that limits Beth and Scott. Beth, you can do it in the afternoon though, right?
Yeah, anytime after about 3:15, I can do it.
Which is
Okay.
kind of the end of their day now that it gets dark at 4.
All right, well, maybe we could try to shoot for 3:30.
Yeah. The other thing, I just wanted to ask Janice this, are you still on the MACC board?
No.
No. Well, it always seemed to me that a really valuable thing for the MACC to do, or maybe it would be a different provider of this, but some sort of like basic wetlands education for highway departments in small towns with lots of gravel roads.
We did offer that a few years ago, right around the time that Tim put in that bridge without permission that you guys had to deal with. And I suggested that at least the town make him go to that thing. It might have been put on by FERCog or else it was MACC, but it was something specifically for DPW people and the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah.
And there was no follow through on that.
Yeah, that's really frustrating because I have to say, I feel like it's kind of, I feel like making any long-term meaningful change now is challenging. But I'm optimistic that when someone comes in to fill Tim's shoes sometime next year, that's really the place to start that conversation and perhaps encourage that education if it isn't already present in the person who gets the job.
Well, I thought it was actually encouraging. I saw that Steve Sullivan was on tonight and he works for the highway department.
Right. Yes. And I talk with Steve a
Yeah.
lot. Our dogs play together many days. So
Ah,
it's been very, it's been great.
yeah, he might be a good intermediary if that's allowed by the, people in power.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
maybe I was just gonna say it might be, I agree with, I think it was, maybe it was Janice said, concerns about, the solution being worse than the problem. And I wonder if, given the short term, maybe there are some things when we meet if it's with Tim or with Steve, that we could think about just how to stabilize it over the winter and spring. Because I do think the long-term solution is going to be probably more involved and not to be just hastily dumping rock in places.
Yeah,
I agree. I think, really right now, given what we've documented, because we didn't go and do a survey of the entire road. So there may be other things, and I don't want to say this is all there is, but if we found these two areas, if they can come up with a solution to stop sediment from going into the wetlands and the resource areas in those two spots, where it's clearly getting into the resource area and damaging it.
Yeah. It might be just,
I found sediment from the road that was about 25 feet off the road up near number 539 or 549, whatever that house is.
and that's right across from where the spring is.
Yes,
there.
and
Yeah.
so it's really traveling. It's a lot of water from some of these storms pushing a lot of gravel into the wilderness area
At this very moment.
at this very moment. Okay, Penny, would you be willing to also join us for that site visit?
Depending on when it is. Yes.
Okay, well, that
Yeah.
would be, I think, a productive thing. Rather than having a Zoom, we talked about it, maybe a Zoom with Becky. I feel like maybe if we could all just go out there and look at these things with Becky and Tim, that seems like that would be the most constructive way. So
I think that would be much more productive than having a Zoom meeting.
yeah, that's what I think too.
I agree.
Okay. So I'll try to see what dates are a possibility, and maybe we'll shoot. Beth, you could do a 3:15.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe we could shoot for a 3:15 time. I'll see what might work. And maybe give a couple dates or something. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Be great to get Steve Sullivan to come along as well, just as another set of eyes. Although I don't know how Tim feels about that kind of situation. So,
Which situation?
well,
Sullivan come along?
it's always been Tim. The commission has always met with Tim and no one else on the highway crew. So I don't know if that's a touchy subject or not.
It might be a little different now. If he's going to be retiring fairly soon, maybe he'll be more open to having other
Yeah.
people included.
Good point.
Maybe. Well, I don't know how that would how that would happen. So get some thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Think about that. Okay, well, this turned into a longer meeting than I thought it was going to be, but it always is, right?
Yeah. Can I interject something really quickly?
Yeah.
From putting my open space committee hat on for a second. So I think many of you may know that there's going to be a public forum on the 18th of December to discuss the draft plan for the open space and recreation plan that we've been working on. A draft of that, a full draft will be posted on I think the 9th of December in preparation for that. And I bring it to the commission in part because many of the action items in the plan fall back onto the Conservation Commission. And I think you're going to talk about this at the meeting next week, right, Miriam? Is that correct?
I don't know that we've put it on our agenda, but that's okay.
Anyway, what Gail Fleischiker and I, who've been working on this, did was extract just the action plan from the big, huge, giant document and highlight the different actions that are targeted to each group. And so, Miriam, perhaps at least you can share that with the commission so people can see it and perhaps react to it and give us advice. Tell us you love it. Tell us you hate it. Tell us you want to do that. Tell us you don't want to do that. Rather than it just turning into a final document that we never get any buy-in from the various groups who are being asked to implement the plan. So
I'll send it out to folks.
okay, and maybe you can have at least a brief discussion at your meeting next week about that. And hopefully some of you will come to the forum just to see what people have to say.
That'd be great. Just a couple more details. So we have a site visit for tomorrow at 10 a.m. at, I think, 69 Schoolhouse Road. I cannot make it. It sounded like Robin and Mary, you both could do it. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and the builder will be there. His name is Jay Watson. It's just a simple project, and it sounds like there are no wetlands near the house, but there's some wet areas sort of downhill from the property. So I guess you have to figure out whether it's in a buffer zone or not, but it sounds like it's downhill. So it's, well, you could have erosion problems. So anyway, you guys should look at that. It's a building permit.
Okay.
Okay.
Mary, do you have site visit forms
Blank one?
that you could
Absolutely.
bring?
I think, I'll look and see. I think I can find. if I
I'd
can find
email
it here.
blanks to you guys.
Okay.
We do not have a land use clerk, a permanent land use clerk. There was an offer made and the person decided to take another job. So they need to post again. It's discouraging. It's like we're forgetting what it's like to have staff
Real help.
to help.
Yeah.
Well, you are helping, Penny.
Poor
You-
Penny. Oh.
you're
I'm helping a little bit, but man, not very much these days. And I'm sorry to all of you. I just, with the completion of the open space plan, have felt fairly swamped in what I can provide to the town right now. So
So
you
that's
remember that, Janice.
Oh, yes.
So that's this, that. The other thing, and this is more for Penny, but I forgot to send it out. I got an email from Henry Geddes from the Historical Commission. I wasn't part of this site visit, but a group of the commissioners went out and did a walk on South Brook. And well, actually, Janice, you were part of that.
Yep.
And they would like, the Historical Commission would like to be a part of a discussion about trails, if any changes are made to trails, if there's any work involving moving rocks. The commission would like to be a part of that, maybe go out and review that with the Open Space Committee.
Sure.
So I know you're in the process of mapping with Liam, right?
Right. And I should have a map that I can provide to the commission, the Conservation Commission, by your January meeting.
What is Liam using for mapping? What program is he using?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out.
I don't have the photographs, but I know that other folks from the commission took some geolocated or geotagged photographs, and Henry was going to take some more, which he hasn't done yet. So I think the goal was to put those into a GIS maps that could be then shared with the Open Space Committee.
Mhm. Well, remember, you're the managers of this property.
Yeah.
And that I am acting as your agent on this. So anything I do needs to be approved by you guys.
So anyway, when they get that map, they'll send it along, and I just want to give you a heads up that that would be coming. And maybe have a joint discussion with the commission, historical
Okay.
commission.
I just have one question on that. I was in the Southbrook area today, and there was some area that was flagged with yellow tape. Sometimes it was like caution tape, and sometimes it was other yellow tape. And I was wondering if that might be the snowmobile trail. I couldn't tell. Have you been in there recently and seen any new yellow flagging?
I haven't been out there for, well, the last time I was there, Janice, was with you, which
Oh,
was
okay.
some months ago. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know about that, but that's interesting.
Hmm. It was sort of an odd, I couldn't quite figure it out, but the closest I could come, because it was going up and down some slopes, was that maybe it was a snowmobile trail, but I don't know. But
Is it an existing trail?
some parts look like it and some parts not. It was sort of over near the snowmobile bridge, you know, and the stream there and stuff. We bushwhacked elsewhere and came out there. And we saw some along the way. So if someone goes into Southbrook, see if you can figure out. First, I thought maybe it was Henry, but I said, no, this doesn't look like Henry. And it didn't quite follow it followed the trail sometime and not other times. So
You don't think it's Philip Parker out there doing something?
no, this is big flagging. And like I said, some of it's like caution tape and stuff. It just had a snowmobile look to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
seen it.
Well, that's concerning. The pink tape was the Phil Parker tape.
Yeah.
And that was a mess. When I went out there, it was everywhere and all
Everywhere.
directions,
Yeah.
just everywhere.
Yeah,
Just
everywhere.
extreme. It was not like
ridiculous.
described the way it had been described to us. He's not moving forward with that anytime soon.
Thank goodness.
Have you heard that directly from him?
Yeah, I reached out to him and he said
thanks for
maybe
doing
next
that.
year, maybe next year. But, you know,
Maybe somewhere else. I think there are better
Yes,
places for what
I
he
think
wants
so.
to do.
yeah, maybe he's sensing that. I don't know.
I wondered if you could do something at the Lake Wales State Park, not
Oh, yeah.
the land north of
Parking.
Lakeview Road there. That may be
Mhm.
challenging, but
It involves state cooperation. Okay, so that was that piece. I don't know if we have anything else.
I have
So
a quick
Penny,
question. I have a question, just sort of housekeeping stuff, Miriam, and that has to do with the Salvatore NOI. So I'm kind of baffled by what's going on with that. Did you give him a deadline for submitting the NOI?
We did not give him a deadline.
Which
We,
is always a good thing to do in an enforcement order. Just as a word to the wise. So I don't understand how he could have notified abutters if he doesn't have a public hearing date.
well, that's a very good question. And I emailed him saying that I didn't understand that either. And that he needed to put an ad in the paper, and I sent him the abutters language as well as the text that has to go into the newspaper, but I said there isn't time to do it for next week. What question I had in terms of deadlines is, once he's submitted an NOI, we have 21 days to open the public hearing. Is that right?
You do, but we don't have a copy of the notice of intent yet.
Unless it's in the mailbox now. I mean, he's
It wasn't there Tuesday when I last checked.
And
But
it
is
needs
it
to be
21 days?
reasonably complete. It can't be like a real half finished project. I mean, it needs basic information.
And it was a very limited diagram, and Mark Stinson had feedback saying he wanted additional information. So
So I'm wondering if he submitted it to DEP, but not to the Conservation Commission.
It's a good question. They sent me a digital copy of it
Yeah.
today. So I guess we have to operate under the assumption that the deadline may have begun, but if it's incomplete, we could inform them next week. We could open the hearing and say we have to continue it.
You can't open the hearing if he hasn't
Yeah.
done a legal notice
That's right. So we can't open the hearing.
until
So
January. You need to,
are we
I
still
think what you need to
21
do
days?
tonight is set a meeting time in January for him. On your January meeting. I don't know if you have other things on the docket that night.
I don't think we do at this point, and that's January 13th. We're only meeting once a month, so
Right.
we could set it for 7:30.
I would suggest doing that and just notifying him of that, and
Don't we have to do that at another meeting where it's been posted? Can you do that
don't have
tonight?
to, no, you don't have to notify him of that. I mean, usually that's the clerk's job to take that information in and notify the applicant of when this will be on the agenda, but things are kind of chaotic right now.
Okay.
And then my other question has to do with TRC. My understanding is, as of now, we still don't have the revised maps from TRC.
We don't. And, I'm feeling like I don't really like this dynamic of getting things at the last minute and then being told, oh, we'll just walk you through it in the meeting because
Well,
everything's there.
The commission has been very clear from the beginning on this, that Emily Stockman needs to receive things at least 2 weeks before the meeting at which this will be discussed. And then the commission needs to receive her response at least a week before the meeting, so you have a chance to assimilate it. And when I went in on Tuesday, there was still no information from TRC in response to Emily's request.
And I emailed Maria asking her where things were at and did not get a response.
Okay, so I was asking that in part to know whether that needed to be part of next week's meeting. And if it were, I would have started the, oh gosh, I'm tired. The ANRAD response that goes out once you finalize things.
ORAD.
Yeah, the ORAD, exactly.
Well, we're not going to be able to close the public hearing.
Okay,
We're going to have to continue it, which means we'll probably continue it to January. But what we'll do is we'll do Joe Salvador at 7:30. We can make Maria come at 8 or 8.
okay, okay.
I think that's the way to do it.
And then Emily's going to be gone in another week or so, right? She leaves like the 13th or 14th of December and is gone for 2 months.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
is she doing something fun, I hope?
I think she goes down to visit, if it's her daughter or son or someone in Florida, someone.
Hmm.
So she needs, she works hard.
Oh,
So she goes
does.
away for 2 months and she's given me and Granby, a couple times saying the 14th is the absolute last day and I'm out of here. So
Well, I'll be in touch with her tomorrow
Yeah.
when did you, I missed the first part of the meeting. Did you sort things out for the certificate of compliance?
yes. So Penny, what's her name? Ellen wants to pick it up tomorrow at town hall because she needs to get it filed right away.
Well, I won't have a chance to do it until sometime in the afternoon.
Okay,
I have-
I will do it in the morning.
I'm happy to do it. And well, we can talk about that later. We don't need to hold the commission up for this.
Well, I mean, we have, Ellen's gonna want to come over, so I can. I mean, if you want to do it in the afternoon and then I'll tell her to come over, like, what time should we tell her to come?
3.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
that would be great.
2:30.
30, okay. So I'll have to send you, I'll revise the documents and send them to you in digital form, and then you'll submit them to DP as well.
Yep, I'll do all that.
So we have we have both the COC and we have the enforcement order.
Okay, and you have a deadline in the enforcement order?
We do indeed.
Okay, excellent.
But speaking of the whole notice of intent thing, now that I'm thinking about it, do we need to say in the enforcement order that if she wants to do, that she's going to do anything major, she needs to come back with an NOI?
I don't think so. You're just agreeing to the repair or whatever of the driveway.
Driveway, we're just keeping it narrow.
Yeah.
Okay, no ponds.
No ponds.
Please. Okay.
And you can say if she wants to do anything more substantial that an additional filing is required.
Yeah, which we did tell her that tonight.
Oh, right. So,
Okay.
but you should put that in the enforcement order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't leave anything to anyone's imagination.
Right.
Can we make a motion to adjourn now?
I'm going to add that with, I'm assuming everybody is in agreement that that term, that one sentence can be added to the enforcement order. Please.
That no other substantial work can be done without coming back to the commission for
Yes.
something along that line.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let's adjourn. It's 9:22.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Whoa, motion to adjourn. Who's second?
Quick.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
We'll do it by unanimous consent. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Bye-bye.